your own benefit. I mean, that's a choice you have, but I think it works out better if we all work together. So, and that's an individual choice that has to be taken. That's no one that can dictate this on you, or not a leader that can tell you that this is what you should do. That's something you have to come to yourself as your own conclusion.
Thank you.
At the moment, there are a bunch of websites who claim that WikiLeaks somehow cooperates with the Israeli government. And one of those cites you as a source. So I would like to have publicly from you that you haven't said anything in that regard, or...
Yeah, thanks a lot. That's my favorite topic in the last few weeks. So, okay, that brings me back to one of the other points that I wanted to hit on before, and I think I missed. So the claim is, I'm not sure if everyone heard it, the claim is that I allegedly had talked to a, I think, Israeli reporter, alleging that there was a deal made between WikiLeaks and secret intelligence in Israel, or some semi-officials, or however it was called, and it's been spread over various forums, especially in Russia, and it has now reached some mainstream press, and I'm getting calls from France and from Scandinavia if I had made these allegations. So this is a perfect example of disinformation that we see spreading today, and this is another example why we all have to look very closely. So I have never been in touch with any reporter. Actually, I couldn't even find that reporter anywhere. She doesn't seem to exist. And it's just distracting all of us from the real content that is there. And that's the same thing with fake diplomatic cables that come up somewhere that allege stuff. And it's the same thing with, I don't know, lots of different legal issues being thrown into one large pot, and we don't even know what it exactly is that we are defending us from, or who it is that we're defending from what. And it's all adding up to the confusion. So I think what we're seeing is the beginning of the first real war on information. And that, again, in this community should be pretty, we should all be pretty aware of this, because we're probably one of the few groups on the world that can understand that war, because we technically understand it. So I'm not entirely sure what comes out of that, but I hope that it all is going to be resolved, because we're all critically looking at the facts. So.
Hi, I have one question out of the chat.
Yes.
Anonymous here. Would IMMI be interested in crowdsourcing translations?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I can't imagine that anyone would have anything against that. Yeah, just the website is immi.is. There are contacts, contact addresses, and just send an email, and they'll involve you.
Thanks.
Hi. Can you tell us something specific about the structure of OpenLeaks and how hopefully it'll be less vulnerable than WikiLeaks?
Okay. So, I mean, there have been a couple of newspaper stories about this topic anyways. So, okay. If you look at what WikiLeaks is, or the whole concept of whistleblowing, technical solutions for whistleblowing right now, is that there is one input stream where you can send a document or thousands of documents, and it ends up in an organization, and there it is being processed, it is being verified, maybe it's being worked on, it's analyzed, summaries are written, it has to be anonymized, all these things, and then there is one stream where it can be output. So, and all in between the input and the output is one blob that is actually a real blob, because it's not transparent at this point in time, that is doing whatever it does. And the more successful that concept gets, and I guess we all can see that it is very successful, the more workload is created, and that means that you're running into bottlenecks. That's just a mere scalability issue. And the solution to that is to decentralize that whole structure, to make sure that you can address resource constraints more efficiently. So what OpenLeaks will be about is making sure that there are hundreds of sites that have input streams and enabling these sites to decide how they want to output material. That is basically the approach that we are aiming at. So I think WikiLeaks was very important to show that there's a need for such technology, for such sites, and it has spawned a cultural debate that was very, very important. We are discussing today, I mean, even my grandfather in the 8 o'clock news is confronted with the problem of secrecy in today's world, and what must be secret and what must not be secret. And these are two things, very important things that we need to redefine for the future, because they just don't fit into this bus that we are driving as they are right now. So, so decentralizing that whole operation, I think, is what will help to make it more democratic, to make it more stable against attack, to make it more sustainable, and in some way to make sure that the power that accumulates also is distributed over more shoulders than just one pair of shoulders.
Thank you.
Yeah, one more question out of the chat. Alex asks, forks are important sometimes, but isn't it a little bit early this time? Don't you think that WikiLeaks is young enough to be changed in the direction the community prefers? At least it's still a developing concept.
That's what we thought for a couple of months. I mean, I can only say that. It was not a quick decision for anyone to take. It is not a early decision to fork off that project.
This is the third time I have seen you on the stage, and I honestly missed the standing ovations, so simply thank you, Daniel, for all you've done.
No. Just one short comment, just quickly. This year, this is all right, just because there have been many more people, especially within the last few months, that have been doing way more work than I could do, just because I've been constantly on the run, trying to do something productive and not being held up all the time. So it's other people that deserve this credit. I'm just standing here on their behalf. So I just wanted to have...
I have a really general question about the whole concept of such organizations as WikiLeaks. They stand for more transparency while being intransparent themselves for a good reason, actually. But how do you want to resolve it? Because it's not consistent, self-consistent.
Yeah, I don't think that this won't work. That's why we are having a different approach now. So. I do not think that it is justified to be that intransparent. And it's actually just harming everything, because it all becomes so blurry that no one understands anymore what's actually going on and what it is that is being attacked, what an organization needs to defend from. And you're just opening up more corners for attack by that approach. So I think nothing is sustainable, and that's not what, I mean, it's maybe a decision of what we want for the future. Do we want a solution to our problems that is sustainable, that can live in the sunlight as we want everyone else to be? Or do we want a solution that goes so deep into the underground that it's not really a solution, but it's more a hack, maybe? So do we want a real, properly engineered solution, or do we want a hack that some people could benefit from, but it's not really scaling to all of society? And so I think any such organization has to stick by its own by the own rules it's trying to impose. And that all the transparency is only helping in strengthening it. So I think that's the better approach, and that is why one of the reasons why we decided to leave and do things way more transparent than had been done there. So
Thank you.
Sadly, it looks like I have to cut us off because we're out of time. No? Okay, I've been granted 5 more minutes.
Okay, thank you. Your open approach sounds nice, but how are you keeping the quality, and how do you avoid fake cables that floods the system?
Okay, that's so. The problem is that I haven't even talked about the approach in a way that it would give a basis for the answer for that question, I think. So, okay.
The problem might be that people who don't like the system just put in content.
Yeah, but that's primarily not a problem of the system. So you see what will happen is basically, what WikiLeaks is it's a post drop. You can, same as you can stuff an unsigned envelope into the mail, you can post the document online, and it has some anonymity features. And those receiving the document can take care of keeping the source of the document anonymous. Okay, so what WikiLeaks has one of these post drops. So in the future, there will just be 100 of these post drops, and there will be organizations or individuals responsible for taking care of what comes into that post drop. So if that system is flooded, that's first of all their problem. So that's, I think, what every newspaper or every NGO or whoever else is working in the public interest has as a potential problem, that you just send them a lot of crap and they will not be running any stories on it just because it's not interesting. So they need to put up resources to deal with that, and in the same way they will have to put up resources to deal with what's coming in via that technology. And that's why actually the decentralization is better, because it's not just one organization now that's flooded with potentially a lot of crap, but it's actually 100-fold, and it's just distributed better. So you're avoiding bottlenecks there.
Thanks.
Yes, thank you. I praise the idea of diversity and redundancy and distributing all these input channels, but I'm curious as to how you, or whoever you might know, sees the risk of personal data getting leaked, because what I understand WikiLeaks have done with these cables is crossing out names, perhaps, and how do you take care of the personal data that should be secure when having hundreds of input cables?
Yeah, okay, so that is a valid question. And again, if you look at the last 3 big disclosures where that exact problem would potentially should have been addressed, there were different approaches on how to solve that, and in the end it all boiled down to a question of manpower you could put into solving that issue. And that again only works by diversifying the field and pulling in more people and more resources. And that's where there's experience with a lot of organizations in doing this. They have standards that have been set out over decades on how to do this properly, on where to draw a line between public interest and just violating someone's personal rights or whatever in that respect. So I think a decentralized approach there also helps this, because you pool all the experiences that already exist and you do not try to redefine or reinvent the wheel that is already there. So from our perspective, that is a good approach to actually hardening that process. Guido.
Okay, another question out of the chat, anonymous. There are lots of new leaks projects popping up. How can whistleblowers decide which are safe?
That is a good question. Well, I mean, I can answer that for us, I think, at least because we come from the background we come from. We have some credibility there and maybe an easier start than most others. And the transparency that we plan in explaining the systems that we use and how this is all set up will also help to establish that credibility. But how other initiatives will do that, I'm not entirely sure. So there's a German newspaper that has just embarked with their own project, and